Hi guys, and welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. In today's podcast episode, we're going to be talking about the transformative power of handmade. I look like Veruca Salt today. Hello guys, how are you doing? I know that it's been an overwhelming couple of weeks. A lot of bad news have been swamping us as a collective, human race, and also in different parts of the world. But I still hope that you have found the peace that you need to process everything that we've been just slammed with, and to truly just take a moment to breathe, to understand, and to question, because I think it is very important that we all exercise critical thinking and have discussions about the things that are going on around us. And we all process it differently, but I just hope that you've had the quiet time to be able to process that. For my part, I've found a lot of solace in crafting, but mostly organizing my craft, and by that I mean that I've sat down with a calendar and I've written down all the different ideas for crochet projects that I've had, and I've kind of divided them between the months that are left of this year, and if they roll over to next year, they roll over. I'm not going to be super strict with my publication schedule because I want to deliver good work to you guys, and good work takes time. It's a whole process of designing, ideas, writing, tech editing, changing, and all that. But I do have a schedule for upcoming blog posts. In my newsletter about 2 weeks ago, I think I wrote about some blog post ideas that I had, and I had some good feedback. Somebody requested a blog post about how I alter designs to fit, because she's in the smallest range, extra small, and some designs, because of time constraints or because aesthetically the stitch count will work for this size but might not work for an in-between size. Well, sometimes sizing up or down can be a little bit difficult, and as we discussed in the previous podcast episode, designing it's more of a recipe, right? Because you kind of put the pieces together in a way that it fits you. So I've done that organizing, and I've also left space for commissions, because when commissions come in, everything else takes a back burner, not because they aren't important, but because commissions have a stricter deadline than something that I'm designing for you lovely people. You're not going to email me and say, hey, you're late with a design. You might email me and say, hey, what is this design coming out, and things like that. And I don't mind answering any of those questions. And sometimes, to be fair, sometimes I'll be reminded of, hey, I didn't publish that pattern. Like, that's what happened with the Autumn Flame vest. Somebody had asked when it was coming out in my Etsy store and in my website, because it really reminded them of something they used to wear in the 70s, and they wanted to make it. And that got me into thinking of, well, it's very yarn specific, and I checked Claudia's website, and while she still has some hanks left of the yarns, she hasn't restocked, and honestly I forgot to ask her if she was actually going to invest again in this yarn venture. So bearing all that in mind, I just set about to redesigning it with a different yarn. And it is a redesign because while the stitch count is kept the same, while the stitch pattern is kept the same, everything else was changed. And I haven't released that yet. It's being tech edited and tested. So I will get back to you when that is all set and done. Now, before we get into today's topic, which is the transformative power of handmade, and that comes with a story, by the way. Yes? Ichiro just wanted you guys to know that he's very upset that I am sitting down talking to a camera instead of staring at him, stare at me. Right. Now that I've passed on that message, Thank you all so much for your comments on the previous podcast where we talked about, are we really working up a design and the creativity involved in altering a design and when craft becomes art. And I just thought we had a really nice conversation about that, and I am very, very glad that we are able to have those conversations because you guys comment and interact with my videos. So thank you so much for doing that. And I really do enjoy reading your comments and just having these little discussions that can, you know, bring up different viewpoints or different thought process. I love that. So thank you so much to everybody that ever comments on one of my videos or messages me. If you don't want other people to read your comments, and feel free to message me and I will have a very nice conversation with you via private messaging or my email or my website, whichever avenue you choose. Thank you so much for contacting me. And on that note, if you are new here, thank you so much for clicking that watch button. If you are here because you're interested in my Spanish content, iCard somewhere here. It's in a different channel now. If you are here because you're interested in crafting and crochet in general, then welcome. And in the description box below, you will be able to find timestamps and links to the things I talk about. I was thinking of moving the show notes to the blog on my website, because then that way you can see high resolution pictures and think of the things I talk about. So let me know if that is something that interests you. It does mean more work, but I like playing around with photography and I do enjoy sitting down and writing up a blog post. So let me know if that is something that interests you. Now, in the introduction of this video, I said that we were going to talk about the transformative power of handmade. And this comes with a story. The story begins with yoga. I know you might be saying that's a weird place to begin a crochet story, but it does. And it begins specifically with my friend Jillian Stitches on Instagram. She messaged me and asked if I wanted to be part of the group chat yoga that she started, Yoga with Friends, where we go through the 30-day yoga journey that is designed by Adrian. And if you don't know, Yoga with Adrian is a very popular yoga community. It's a huge yoga community, very popular YouTube channel, and she's been around for a while. I think she was really my first yoga instructor, and that's been five years now, maybe. I don't know how to tell time anymore. But she designs every January, kind of a tradition, she designs a 30-day journey around a theme. And this year's it was breath, and I know I did it all, sorry, my pen. And I know I've talked to you guys about that previously because I did complete the journey this year. I started a little bit later in January, but I did complete it. However, when Jillian messaged me, I was more than happy to join in again because I feel that yoga is very therapeutic and also very necessary for crochet because it lets you kind of relax all your muscles and stretch all the tightness that you have because of sitting down crafting for countless of hours. So anyway, within this 30-day yoga journey, there are some traditions in themselves. For example, day 6 of the yoga journey, it's gonna hurt, you're gonna sweat, it's gonna burn. By contrast, day 8, you're gonna snuggle, you're going to just move gently and slowly and kind of thank your body for surviving day 6. And in this day 8, the theme was snuggle, and she encouraged you to grab a blanket and a pillow and just really hunker down with your breath and enjoy the process in a more relaxed way. And I grabbed my granny stripe blanket. Now, the minute I wrapped myself in this blanket, I'm holding it up to the screen now. It's a granny stripe scrappy blanket that I started four years ago, maybe. And you guys can see it's got a lot of greens and things like that. Now, when I started this blanket, I started it because I had a lot of pardon me, Harry Potter inspired colorways, and I wanted them all to be together in one blanket. Of course that deviated quickly because I realized that I in fact didn't have as much scrappy yarn or yarn, DK weight yarn in general, to use. This was back when I lived in Puerto Rico. Now, when I was on my yoga mat and I snuggled down with this blanket, I was just hit with all these different emotions, and I was feeling all the feels, to say it that way. I was immediately transported to the time when I decided to crochet this blanket, and the reason why I decided to crochet this blanket, I remembered the hook I was using, the place I was sitting when I started it, which was in the library at my house in Puerto Rico. I remembered the episodes, not the precise episodes, but I remember that a lot of this blanket was stitched while watching Katie of Inside Number 23 with my mom, and I remembered all those feelings of safety and all the thoughts and emotions that I poured into this blanket, and it just hit me. It was such a moment of connect and processing all these feelings that I thought, this is why people make things. This is why people choose to crochet blankets and stitch all these memories and give them as gifts, because they contain your memories at a certain point in your life, right? Because we all change, we're constantly changing. Our feelings, our likes, our dislikes, our thoughts, they all change, which is a good thing because sometimes they change for the better, and that's highly encouraging. Anyway, yeah, so I felt that deep connection with a make that it really hit me. And then I started thinking, well, I think I've forgotten what this feeling is. I think I've forgotten this reason behind crafting, because it's been a while since I've been focusing on my designs and just this constant need to move on to the next thing I'm gonna design, to put it out there, to make sure that I'm producing valuable content, that I don't actually slow down to appreciate the fact that I am creating memories. I am crocheting my feelings, I am crocheting my thoughts, I'm crocheting my ideas. I am making an item stitch by stitch, right? And I was just wondering, does that happen to anyone else? Do you focus so much on producing content or gifting things or your deadlines that you really disconnect with the craft? Because this blanket just brought it all back. This is why I crocheted. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to connect with the craft. I wanted a way of expressing myself. And all these different things that I think we forget along the way when we focus on I guess when you focus more on the product, not in the sense that you want to wear the product, but in the sense of in a way imitating fast fashion and making sure that you're ahead of the game, that what you're producing is going to be widely accepted, because this is, in some cases, this is our livelihood. This is how we earn money for groceries, for car payments, for, I don't know, underwear. So yeah, I just wanted to know, has this happened to you before? Have you kind of lost that connection to crochet? And I don't mean the muse, because I still have a lot of creative ideas to process, but until I stopped and I snuggled with this handmade blanket, it didn't hit me that I'd actually lost that connection to my hands, to the fact that my hands, even when they're in pain, help me create something that I'm proud of and that I'm happy to make and that brings me joy. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think that you have lost that connection to your crochet? Have you always felt connected to your crochet or to your craft, or whatever craft that you do? Have you ever just kind of been working on a project and been, bam, hit in the face with this idea of, I like what I'm doing. This is the point of no return kind of thought. Please let me know in the comments below. Now, speaking of the yoga and hunkering down with Handmade and the transformative powers of Handmade, my next projects were a bit of a transformation too. They are a little bit different from what I usually work on in that it's sewing. We're gonna start with something sewing, but let me take you through the story first. The story begins with Skillshare, and no, this video is not sponsored by Skillshare. It's just that Catherine of Craft and Treats mentioned an art journaling class that she was taking through Skillshare, and since I do pay a Skillshare subscription because I like to use their classes for, you know, Instagram strategies, how to take better pictures, flat lay photography, taxes, all those things, I do use Skillshare for that. Again, not sponsored, just a fan. So she was talking about this Skillshare course on art journaling and how the person uses what you call coffee table books, you know, books that have a lot of pictures and the text is minimal, and she uses them as background for her journaling. So she'll cover the writing that she's not interested in, or all of it, whatever you choose. She'll cover it with a white paper and she'll write her own thoughts, and that way you don't actually spend or in my case, stress about how you're going to decorate the journaling and how it's going to look pretty and how your handwriting is not pretty, because the only thing you're doing is recording your creativity in a way. And so I went on the hunt for some coffee table books that I would enjoy, that would express my style, and that I would actually take pleasure in at the end of the day, sitting down and just writing whatever occurred to me, or maybe plan it out and literally just focus it on art and creative expression and things like that. So I did what I always do. I go to Better World Books and I hunted for like cottage style and cottage core and dark academia kind of things, because yeah, that's me. Anyway, I came across this Cath Kidston book. It was published in 1999 and it's called Vintage Style by Cath Kidston, creating a complete look for your home. I think this was, sorry about that, my memory card was full. Okay, so we were talking about this Cath Kidston book and art journaling. So I really liked Cath Kidston, her flower prints and her London Calling prints when I went to Europe. Like, I really liked Cath Kidston and her vintage inspired style. That's what I'm trying to say. So I bought this book and I thought I was not going to be able to transform it into an art journal because I was going to love it too much. Well, while I do love it, I do not feel guilty covering up the writing and using it as an art journal, because the writing, you kind of have to, okay, she's talking about this, and you kind of have to skip forward or back a couple of pages to look at the pictures, and that kind of annoys me. And while she does take you through the thought process on some pictures and she describes what you don't see, I really wanted to see pictures of it. So I am reading through it because I do want to take as much information from it as I can before I decide to, you know, cover it. I know, I never thought I would say that. Anyway, while looking through this book and how she describes that most of the items in her home were from secondhand stores or antique stores, or are they called trunk shows or charity shops and things like that, I was just really inspired by how she transforms these pieces into things that she'll use in her home. So again, the transformative power of Handmade, you know, it doesn't just transform you, you can turn it into what you need. And here she has this tablecloth that I'm showing up a picture. It's a checkerboard. Is it called the picnic blanket when it's red and white checkers? You know, squares. And on top of it, you really can't see, but it's a sailboat motif, and that part was a vintage linen. I think it was a vintage linen tablecloth that was too short for her table, so she kind of put it as a centerpiece and then added the bottom check to be able to use it in her home and keep it forevermore, creating new memories. And I was very inspired by that, and this past Sunday I decided to try my hand at that. My fabric is not vintage, but it's got some great memories attached to it. So several years ago, when I had an Etsy store, my dad gifted this, I should have folded it differently, this dog fabric to, he bought it as a Christmas gift for me, and it is a cotton linen fabric. It's very high quality. It's printed in Japan. It's about $25 a yard. So he got me a yard of it for Christmas, and it's got all these different dog breeds. We've got Dalmatians, Collies, Shibas, Golden Retrievers, English Bulldogs, Huskies, Terriers, cute little fuzzies that I don't know the name of, Poodles, Schwarzeneggers, oh my god. Schnauzers. It's got schnauzers. I had a yard of it. It was wasn't going to be long enough. So what I did was I cut it, the fabric in half, and I attached the top and the bottom. And then I had this other linen fabric. Also, I think this one's 50-50. It's a lot heavier than the middle one, which is good to kind of weigh down the tablecloth. Again, I only had 2 yards. I didn't have enough of the fabric, so I had to cut it in half lengthwise. And it turned out to be perfect for the top and bottom edges, but for the sides of the table, it's too short. As you can see, I have not finished it. I was going to do a bias binding, but then Mom just said, why don't you crochet a border? And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Let's just add more good memories into this tablecloth that will hopefully last a long while, because it is some very, very nice linen. And hopefully my stitching will hold. I stitched this by machine. This is very, very heavy, so I'm going to set it aside now. But the dog fabric, because I forgot to tell you, so all the dogs are in their, I was going to say proper colors, but it's in a background of kind of a sandy, more like beigey sand color. It's the backdrop, and the linen that I'm using is more of a greige. There we go, you can see the details on the camera. So the linen I'm using is more of a greige, and following Cath Kidston's advice, it needed a pop of color. She says in the book, she says she does that a lot, gets vintage linens, and then as like, if it's a curtain, she'll cut it to the size and add a bias binding in a highly contrasting color. So I thought, well, I'm gonna crochet it in a highly contrasting color, and I want to use some stash because I want to transform my beautiful yarn into beautiful things. So I was very inspired by this crochet border on this pillow. It's a very common thing. In fact, it is so common that I had this that Claudia gifted to me ages ago. Edgings, 100 Old and New Favorites by Clark's J.P. & Coates from 1950, I believe, and it was 10 cents at that time. I think the date, 1945, and we have my favorite edging here. It's got some knit and some crochet ones too, by the way, but my favorite edging is actually one that's meant to be for pillows or blankets. I'm trying to find it because of course now that, here we go. Edgings for sheets and pillowcases. Sorry, not blankets. And I'm trying to treat it very gently because this is 19. So this one down here, it's filet crochet. It's beautiful. It's got the chart there. So that one is my favorite. You actually crochet it in rows. So you crochet it vertically, not horizontally, and I thought you had to crochet it horizontally, so I had actually started with a chain of 300 something. Obviously it wasn't long enough for the tablecloth, but I just wanted to see. And that was when I realized, oh, you work vertically, not horizontally, so yeah, I don't need these many chains. But having said that, when I crocheted it I'm going to be using this cotton lurex yarn. It's like a minty jade green with some silver lurex yarn running through it. It's from Rico. I think this is discontinued. It's Rico Design Essentials Cotton Lurex, 97% cotton and 3% polyester for the lurex. So the border was very thick, and I think it would look gorgeous on a sheet. So if I wanted to take one of our bed sheets and just crochet that and sew it, beautiful. But for a tablecloth, I thought it was a bit much. So what I decided to do is actually make up my own filet pattern, so to speak. And I started, I don't know how many chains I did, so I'm gonna actually have to count those. But I just did double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, and so kind of your typical filet mesh. And then when I came down, I filled my last square with double crochet stitches, and I am actually going to rip it back because I think I want the top and the bottom to have those alternating filled squares. If you can, my camera would focus. I don't know what's wrong with my camera lately. It refuses to focus. Right, but yeah, so working that up with a 2.5 millimeter hook, and this is a very special hook ordered, well actually this one was a gift from my friend Anna and Mike over at Stitchcraft and Wizardry. It's a little BB-8. Anyway, so I was very inspired to transform my home with handmade. I do tend to try and make handmade things for my home, but after feeling that blanket and all those memories stitched into it, I was very, very motivated to put a little bit of time and effort and start more projects for my house. Even if I don't finish them now, they'll be finished eventually, and I'll be very happy with them, and I'll get a lot of use out of them. So that's where I'm going with this design. And actually, I'm really liking this yarn and the stitch as well. So I'll just have to rip that back and it'll look very, very nicely. I'm just going to show you one more thing from this book. It's a beautiful book to look at. I think it cost me about $5 from Better World Books. It is from 1999, and it does have beautiful imagery, like I said. So I think it'll be, oh, just look at this room. So I think it'll be a very good book to have for art journaling. But what I'm trying to show you are the bed linens, because she actually owns some bed linens. Well, a lot of this book is all vintage. Here we go. So this was a filet border that really looked like the one I wanted to add. So that's where all my inspiration to transform my home with Handmade came. Not that I didn't have the intention, but looking at this book, it kind of gave me the extra oomph to, yeah, let's do this. You know, it might take a while, but all good things do, right? So that is my vintage style with Cath Kidston, and another project that I have on the go that's kind of being stitched with a lot of memories and a little bit of a, not frustration, but working, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this next top project is also being stitched with a lot of memories, and I remember every yarn that I've put into this and the story behind it. So like I said, it's just a beautiful thing to work on. And that is my test crochet for the crochetseaglasstee. Now this is a pattern by Wool and Pine Designs. I'll include the links down below. I did mention them in the previous podcast. I foolishly thought I would have a finished garment. But no, my dear people, no. It is not finished. In fact, I am just now almost ready to split for my sleeves. But this is the crochetseaglass top. It is a pattern designed to be worked with either full hanks of yarn or your leftover scraps, which is what I'm using it for. I'm working up the scraps of yarn that I had left over from various projects. It is fingering weight, and it is crochet color work. It is 1x1 crochet color work. What does that mean? That means that you're changing yarn with each stitch. I know, it's daunting. That's the word I was looking for. It's daunting, and it can feel a little bit intimidating, but once you get into the flow of it, it's a flow. This is what it looks like in the front, as you can see, or if you're listening, I'll describe it to you. I've started in my collar or my neckline with a kind of chartreusey yellow, more towards limey green yellow than chartreuse color. This was from Little Bean Loves, and it came in a yarn pack that my mom bought for a knit project, I believe. Well, the yarn pack was designed for a knit shawl, but mom bought it for crochet purposes, and I stole this one. And then it's very hard to tell, but I just basically tried to take all the leftover greens, blue greens, anything tealy that would go with the green theme. I tried to just repurpose all that from my stash, and I also have a hot pink that is being distributed throughout that I'm actually very happy how it's looking against the green. And just like I said, I remember all of these yarns. So this yarn limey green chartreuse that I'm using as my main colorway, it's got a stellina in it, but I used this for my Bobble in Time top. This was the contrasting color in my Bobble in Time top, and there's also 2 rows stitched into my granny stripe blanket. This lovely hank, it's got blues, teals, some gray smudges, and some white. This is a Kay Jones colorway, so this you can no longer find it. She no longer dyes yarn, and it was a Ramus Lupin colorway. And yeah, I used this to make the second version of my Las Nubes top. This hot pink yarn also has tones of Pepto-Bismol, tones of a magenta and fuchsia, some darker purples, and even some specks of green. This was a Don't Call Me Nymphadora colorway. And then this beauty is also very special. I used this to make a peplum top. This beauty is also very special. This one is Black Elephant Yarns. And it was inspired by a postcard that Emma Potter asked her to recreate in yarn, and it's got teals, aquas, sharp splotches of neon-y green, chartreuse green, some reds, some pinks, and some things that blends into purple sometimes. It is a gorgeous one. I made my first pair of crochet socks with this. Next up we have, oh yes, this colorway. It's different tones of green, some darker greens, some lighter greens. It's basically inspired by a watermelon rind, and this was a sock blank meant to work socks 2 at a time. It was called Watermelon because it really looked like a watermelon, and I used this to make a pair of cupcake socks that my mom designed, and I've held on to it for a long time because I loved working on those socks. I loved this yarn. Love how it worked up in those socks. So I got that. This one, it's currently attached to the project right now. These 2 are attached. This was from my first ever second sock syndrome swap. It is a cal hosted by Anna of Stitchcraft and Wizardry, and the idea behind it is that you get a sock partner and you each knit one sock, and then you send each other the sock and the yarn that you knit for that person so they can complete the second sock, and that way you only knit one sock. And this was from my partner. Beautiful gradients of green, a cake green. It's got a more opaque lime green, if that makes sense, and a more bright green. I don't know how to describe my colors clearly around it, but it's very special. And then we've got the only Vicky Brown designs, I think. Vicky Brown yarn in my stash. This was a Christmas yarn, and I knit Mom a pair of Christmas socks that turned out to be too big to her, so she returned to me. Alas, I have a lot of that left over too. And so those are all the memories I am stitching into this sea glass crochet top, and I'm using stitch markers that are very special. They're all Christmas stitch markers, Christmas in July, and they are Crafternoon Treats stitch markers, her Christmas pack. Those were a lovely gift from her as well. So a lot of nice project memories going into this top, and it's like I'll get to wear all these memories. Don't know when. It's hot. It's a Dracula summer. And for those of you not familiar with the term Dracula summer, it means that it is so hot that you will not go outside, for you will wither and die. Like a vampire. Anyway. So those are the projects that I've mostly been working on. The tablecloth, like I said, I sat down this Sunday and I was like, I can finish this tablecloth. Well, 6 seams took a long time because it is a very long tablecloth. So in terms of transforming yarn into memories and transforming emotions and feelings with Handmade, this is all that I've been working on these past 2 weeks. I have also, like I said, completed a design which is being tech edited and tested. And I've gotten a commission, so I'll be working on that. And I have not started my summer romance cowl project. I know, shame on me. But I did wind it up, and I am gonna sit down, hopefully sometime this week. I really just want to get through the test for the sea glass top, and then I will feel free to do other things. So I'm at least trying to get to the sleeves and get those properly done, and maybe block it and take a picture so they can at least see top up what it's gonna look like for the finished items. Want to get that done and then sit down with my lovely hank of yarn to crochet up some more memories of Evie and Rick O'Connell. I am so excited. I did wind up the yarn this weekend. That's the other thing I did this weekend. I had a huge winding party. I wound up yarn for my next projects. I'm doing swatches for them, and those are projects for work, as in blog, website patterns, individual patterns that I'm going to publish. But yeah, what else can I tell you? We finished watching, before I forget, admin things. While I haven't really published a new pattern in July, I am going to be writing up a blog post this week about how I alter designs or to fit me. So it's not a foolproof this is how you do it, it's a this is how I do it. Today is Tuesday, so by this weekend that blog post will be out there. And the other thing I'm going to do, or I've done, is some tutorials. I've done a process video, so thank you so much to everybody that voted on whether you like short process videos or long process videos. In case you're interested, long process videos won. The poll has been up for a week and a half. So long process video won, so I'm gonna get that, give it a final review, and see if I need to edit anything out, process it, and upload it for when the Summer Breeze top will be coming out. I will upload that. So keep your eyes peeled. Of course, if you're subscribed to my newsletter, you'll be the first to know, because I always tell people when new patterns are coming out, when blog posts are going to be published, and things like that. And I also did a tutorial for the Shield Maiden top pattern. So there is that. And guys, yeah, I've actually been pretty busy now that I say all that out there. Yeah. Oh, and the final thing was the 10 crochet questions tag that Sandra of Cherry Heart tagged me in. I did a little reel on Instagram, kind of skipping through some of the questions, because in 30 seconds I could not do all 10 questions, or at least in my mind I couldn't see how I could visualize how I would do these questions, because I was trying to show them through my expressions and things like that. So I'm going to run through them now. All right, I wrote them down like a good, proper, sorta podcaster. Okay, so number 1, what is your favorite brand of crochet hooks? It really depends on the project I'm working on, but my top 3 contenders that I always veer towards are Clover, Amour, Tulip, and Furls crochet hook. And of the Furls crochet hook, I really like the Odyssey. But I also enjoy using their streamlines as well, which are resin crochet hooks. Oh, and this lovely wooden hook, this is also a Clover Amour tip. And your favorite hook size? Again, it really depends. Lately, I've been using 4mm and 3mm a lot, so we'll go with those. How do you prefer tapered or inline crochet hooks? I prefer tapered. All these hooks that I've mentioned are tapered. Inline, I feel kind of slow working them, but they're not too bad. How do you grip? Well, my grip has changed. I used to grip pencil grip, and now I grip knife grip, sort of, and then sometimes I go over here, which kind of brings us to the next question of, does the style of hook dictate how you crochet? Yes, it does. You can watch the Tensions podcast where I talk about gauge swatches and how they change based on the hook that I'm using. Ergonomic or regular? Ergonomic. Have you ever used a hook with interchangeable heads? I have not. They seem interesting, like if I'm going to travel. But then I always take my crochet hook roll, so isn't that the same thing? I mean, it's not the same thing, but the idea is the same. Do you like projects that require small stainless steel hooks or larger hooks? Larger hooks, guys. 2.5 is the lowest I'll go. And that, it still takes a lot of mental strength for me to do. If you're only allowed to use 2 hook sizes for the rest of your life, what size and brand would they be? I'm going to say a 3mm Tulip or Clover. You can't find 3mm in a lot of brands. And a 4mm Furls Odyssey. Why? I think that gives me a good variety. For the 3mm, I can use them with fingering weight yarn for a nice sock, and the 4mm, I can use it anywhere from fingering to DK weight. So yeah, those are the 10 questions. As to who I tag, I think I'm going to tag Hannah of the Cozy Cottage Crochet Podcast and Minded Muse Crafts. So if you're interested, I will type down the questions down below so that you can just copy paste them and answer them. So that is all the crafty content I've got for you this week, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and for spending a little bit of your crafty time with me. I know sometimes we don't get a lot of it, so enjoy it, and I will see you in the next podcast. Happy crafting!